Okay, so today we are going to see landing gear. So you could see the pictures. You can see the landing gear wheels, which can land on land or any uneven surfaces. You can see landing on ice areas. You can see the floats, which is landing on water area, and you can see skids for an helicopter to land. Okay, so here we are going to study some few basic concepts in landing gear. Okay, not in depth because we'll be studying in detail in aircraft system and instruments course and also in aircraft maintenance engineering courses and other things. Okay, just a few basics. Okay, just to know what is landing gear and the components of the landing gear or the functions of the landing gear and so on. Okay. So now going to the next slide, you can see this. I just took it from Google. Okay, showing various components of a typical landing gear structure. You can study all the individual names and about their functions. It is clearly given in that particular website. I'll share the details later about this, a typical landing gear. Okay. And landing gear, what is the purpose or the functions of the landing gear? The landing gear sustains aircraft weight on ground and absorbs extreme loadings generated during takeoffs and landings. It also absorbs the energy from the impact loading, I mean during impact of landing. They are attached to the primary structural members of the aircraft. The type of landing gear depends on the aircraft design and its intended use. The airplane is both a land-borne and airborne vehicle, and thus means of operating the airplane on the ground must be provided by means of wheels and brakes. And there is a provision must be made to control the impact forces involved in landing or in taxiing over uneven surfaces or rough ground or rough runway. So this requirement requires a special energy absorption unit in the landing gear, which is provided by the tires. And the landing gear thus includes a so-called shock strut, which is commonly referred to as a oleo strut, which is a member composed of two telescoping cylinders or two telescoping tubes or whatever it is. When a strut is compressed, oil inside the airtight cylinders is forced through an orifice from one cylinder to the other, and the energy due to the landing impact is absorbed by the work done in forcing this oil through the orifice. The orifice can be so designed as to provide practically a uniform resistance over the displacement or travel of the oleo strut. In general, the gear for aerodynamic efficiency must be retracted into the interior of the wing or the nozzle or the fuselage. Therefore, a reliable, safe retracting and lowering mechanism system is necessary. The wheels must be braked and the nose wheel must
जो
be made steerable.
तेरा बाहर कमरे से मोबाइल ला दे
The landing
बेड पे रखा
gear
हुआ
is subjected to relatively large loads whose magnitudes are several times the gross weight of the airplane. And these large loads must be carried into the supporting wing structure or the fuselage structure. So in a simplest form, the landing gear could consist of a single oleo strut acting as a cantilever beam with its fixed end being the upper end, which would be rigidly fastened to the supporting structure. The lower cylinder of the oleo strut carries an axle at its lower end for attaching the wheel and tire. So this cantilever beam type is subjected to bending in two directions torsion,
जल्दी बोल
and also axial
Woo.
loads. Since the gear is usually made retractable, it is difficult to design a single fitting unit at the upper end of the oleo strut that will resist this combination of forces and still permit movement for a simple retracting mechanism. Further, it would be difficult to provide carry-through supporting wing or fuselage structure for such large concentrated load systems. Thus, to decrease the magnitude of the bending moments and also the bending flexibility of the cantilever strut, and also to simplify the retracting problem and the carry through structural problem, it is customary to add one or two brasses to the oleo strut. So in the figure you could see this is the front view and this is side view. You can see the brass strut. You can see the brass strut. Okay. In general, effort is made to make the landing gear structure statically determinate by using specially designed fittings at member ends or at support points in order to establish the force characteristics. And what is torque link? You could see this is the torque link. The oleo strut consists of two telescoping cylinders or the tubes, and some means must be provided to transmit the torsional moment between the two cylinders or the two tubes and still permit the lower cylinder to move upward into the upward cylinder. So the most common way of providing this torque transfer is to use a double cantilever nutcracker type of structure, which is nothing but this torque link, which is shown in the figure. And let us come to the loads that are acting on structural components. The structure of an aircraft is required to support two distinct classes of the loads. Number one, the ground loads, which includes all loads that are encountered by the aircraft during movement or the transportation on the ground, such as taxiing and landing loads, towing and hoisting loads. And the second, the air loads, comprises loads imposed on the structure during flight by maneuvers and guests. In addition, the aircraft is designed for a particular role to encounter loads peculiar to their sphere of operation. For example, fighter type aircrafts. Carrier-borne aircraft, for instance, are subjected to catapult takeoff and arrested landing loads. Most large civil and practically all military aircrafts have pressurized cabins for high altitude flying. Amphibious aircraft must be capable of landing on water, and the aircrafts designed to fly at high altitudes, at high speeds and at low altitude, such as the Tornado, require a structure of above average strength to withstand the effects of flight in extremely turbulent air. The two classes of loads may be further divided into surface forces, which act upon the surface of the structure, such as aerodynamic, and body forces, which act over the volume of the structure and are produced by gravitational and inertial effects. All air loads are the results of the pressure distribution over the surface of the skin produced by steady flight, maneuver, or gust conditions. These loads cause direct loads, bending, shear, and torsion in all parts of the structure, in addition to local normal pressure loads imposed on the skin. Conventional aircraft usually consists of the fuselage, wing, and tail plane, and the fuselage contains a crew or the payload, and sometimes cargo and weapons and fuel in the wings, and depending on the which depends upon the type of the aircraft and also its functions. The wing provides the lift, and the tail plane is the main contributor to the directional stability or the directional control. In addition, ailerons, elevators, and rudder enable the pilot to maneuver the aircraft and maintain its stability in flight, while wing flaps provide necessary increase of lift for takeoff and landing. Now let us get into the function of structural components. The basic functions of the aircraft structure is to resist and transmit the applied loads, to provide an aerodynamic shape, and to protect passengers, payload systems, and also protect from the environmental conditions that are encountered during flight. These requirements in most of the aircraft results in thin shell type of structures, where the outer surface or the skin of the shell is usually supported by means of longitudinal stiffening members and the transverse frames to enable it to resist bending, compressive, and torsional loads without buckling. Such structures are known as semi-monocoque, while thin shells which rely entirely on their skins for their capacity to resist loads are referred to as monocoque. You can see in the figure a typical fuselage, right hand side monocoque, where the skin has to resist all the loads. You can see the skin and you can see the bulkheads in between. Left hand side semi-monocoque structure, where the skins or skin are stiffened by means of the longitudinal stiffening members that are running along the length of the fuselage, okay, and also the stringes are also there, the bulkheads. So this is known as a semi-monocoque. Okay, monocoque is the older type, and nowadays they go for semi-monocoque type. The primary function of the wing skin is to form an impermeable, that is a resistive surface for supporting the aerodynamic pressure distribution from which the lifting capability of the wing is derived. These aerodynamic forces are transmitted in turn to the ribs and stringers by the skin through plate and membrane action. Resistance to shear and torsional loads is supplied by the shear stresses developed in the skin and spar webs, while axial and bending loads are reacted by the combined action of skin and stringers. The role of spar webs in developing shear stresses to resist shear and torsional loads. The ribs near the wing root are required to absorb and transmit large concentrated applied loads, such as those from the undercarriage, engine thrust, and fuselage attachment point reactions. A much more rugged construction is necessary. That is, a tough construction is necessary. The shape of the cross section is governed by the aerodynamic considerations and clearly must be maintained for all combinations of load. This is one of the most important functions of the ribs. They also act with the skin in resisting the distributed aerodynamic pressure loads, and also they redistribute the concentrated loads to the neighboring structural members. The dimensions of the ribs are governed by their span-wise position in the wing and by the loads that are required to support. In the outer portions of the wing, that is at the tip of the wing, where the cross section may be small, relatively small, the wing is tapered and the loads are light, the ribs act primarily as formers for the aerofoil shape.